Hi, this is Kuba Przygoński, and this is my world of motorcycles. It was my grandfather who got me into motorcycles because my grandfather was a real automotive enthusiast and also one of the first Toyota dealers in Poland, and someone who you could say played a part in the Polish automotive scene. He definitely helped a lot of people. At first there was a go-kart, but go-karting was really difficult because 20 years ago, even now, really go-karting in Warsaw is very tough since there's nowhere to drive. Honestly, there aren't any professional tracks or anything like that. So go-karts were so difficult that there was nothing you could really do with them, and eventually a dirt bike came into the picture. It was a Kawasaki KX80, and that was my first real professional motorcycle. And honestly, that's where it all began. At the age of 12, I started racing, pretty much jumping straight into competitions. Jacek Szakor is definitely the person who taught me how to ride a motorcycle and in a way set me on this path. He showed me, well, what a motorcycle really is. At that time, he was at a point where he was finishing his career, you could say, here in Poland in the Polish championships. But he was still before the moment when he started racing in the Dakar. He was in a kind of transitional phase and had a bit more time, so he helped a lot of people. I was also one of those people who somehow got caught up in the world of motorcycles. He also showed me the club, pointed out which riders I could try to work with. And that's really how we got started. And then it happened that I started racing more professionally in motocross while Jacek began competing in the Dakar. At that point he had less time, but by then I was already, you could say, established enough in that environment that I was relatively independent and knew what to do. When I won the Polish Enduro Championship in Class 3, which is for big bikes like the KTM 525, well, I think that's when Jacek definitely saw that I wasn't afraid to ride such a big motorcycle, right? That I'm able to open up the throttle, so to speak. And then I had a few opportunities to actually ride a Dakar bike on the Warsaw training ground. Somehow that motorcycle didn't scare me. Oh, that was the point too, because back then the general opinion about Dakar bikes was that they were such heavy motorcycles that you simply couldn't do anything with them. So I got on that Dakar bike and realized it wasn't so scary, that you could actually ride it really well, that it's a very stable motorcycle, you can ride fast. And that's when I started getting signals here and there that maybe I should try entering a desert rally. For me, it was simply the fulfillment of my dreams, because just as my career started with watching those first Dakars with Poles on television, after those 10 years, well, I was at the starting line myself. That's a huge, huge thing, right? Honestly, I think for off-road motorcyclists, this is, well, a dream. I feel like for me, it was always about that, that starting in the Dakar was the biggest thing there was. And I managed to make that dream come true. And it was a challenge, right? That Dakar was a challenge, just like those first races in Abu Dhabi with a broken finger. Well, the Dakar is a massive event with a huge number of kilometers, a lot going on, and it's a really tough race. And I also managed to survive that first Dakar. I've ridden in 6 Dakars on a motorcycle. In my first Dakar, I finished in 11th place, and that was the top spot among rookies, meaning the first timers who were competing. So that was definitely a good sign for the future. And then you could say the goal was to finish as high as possible. There's one Dakar I really regret, unfortunately, because on the 4th stage, my motorcycle broke down. The engine actually got damaged, so it wasn't my fault, but rather a design issue. And at that point, I was doing really well. I was 4th or 3rd overall, but at such a close margin. At the very beginning of the rally, it's always the hardest to be at the top because everyone is still in the race, right? No one has dropped out yet. So that was definitely a really strong Dakar for me, but it didn't work out and engine broke down, so I came back to Poland. And later I finished the Dakar in 6th place, which is my highest result on a motorcycle in the Dakar, and I'm definitely very, very proud of that. I think there are huge benefits to first being a motorcycle rider and then later switching to driving a car. At the Dakar itself, since it's essentially a desert discipline, it requires a lot of comprehensive knowledge about the desert, about what happens with the terrain, more or less where it's less dangerous, where it's more dangerous, and how to navigate. All of that obviously helps, and you can become a fast competitor much more quickly. A good example of this is Peter Hansel or Nani Roma. These are competitors who have won the Dakar and were previously motorcyclists, and they very quickly reached a good level of form and speed. Well, the goal is definitely to win the Dakar, to stand on the podium, and I'm not giving up. It seems to me that historically that's just how I am. I never give up and I never let go. So we have many situations, even now at the Dakar or in various competitions, where something hopeless happens, and I just say to the co-driver, well, we're doing this because we have to keep going. And somehow we always try to make it to the finish line. So, well, you definitely can't say that driving a car is much easier than riding a motorcycle, because these are also different classes, right? I had the opportunity to race both on a motorcycle and in a car. And honestly, after Dakar, you come out equally tired and equally exhausted from both categories. But it's just different factors that wear you out. In a car, you have a very complex machine that has a lot of different components, which are relatively easy to damage. You also have these vertical G-forces, where you're basically strapped tightly to the seat. So every bump, you could say, you personally feel it's like your internal organs really take a hit and have to brace themselves somehow. On the motorcycle, on the other hand, you have an extra kind of shock absorber in your knees, which help absorb all those bumps. But in a car, on the other hand, you have a safety cage that protects the passengers, whereas on a motorcycle, you really just have a jacket, which is made of a thin material to keep it as light as possible, and in reality you end up taking everything with your elbows. I'm really glad that the Holland team didn't just stop when I stopped racing motorcycles, and that we don't have another generation. Maciej Giemza and Adam Tomaszek joined the Holland team. Well, in my opinion, they are the fastest riders in Poland right now, and also the ones who have the most experience with various off-road disciplines. I definitely remember when we brought the guys into the academy and did some tests in Morocco, where for the first time they got on a Dakar bike. I kind of had the opportunity, you could say, and it was fun for me because I was on the other side, so I gave them, you could say, interesting tasks that I wanted them to complete, for example, in the desert. And then I watched how each of them handled difficult situations. And Adam and Maciej performed the best in these tasks and in those, you could say, tough desert challenges, which are definitely coming in handy for them now at the Dakar. And I think that now their real strong desert career is just beginning, right? Because they have the means to train, they already have a ton of experience from enduro and motocross, and now they just have to put it all together and learn how to ride at over, 160 kilometers per hour and keep up that kind of pace. Would I want my daughters to be motorcyclists? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, because it's a tough discipline and can be really painful at times. I'll definitely give them the opportunity, right? If they want to, they can, but maybe they'll end up more like my wife, who's more into fashion and clothing, you could say. Maybe that's how it'll be, since they are girls after all, but we'll see. The older one is definitely into scooters and bikes, but I can see that the younger one has more potential for toys with wheels, so maybe the younger one will go in that direction.